NGO helping multinationals to tackle modern-day slavery. I'm joined today by Tim Nelson. He is CEO and co-founder of Hope for Justice and Slave-Free Alliance. Hi, Tim.
Hi, lovely to see you.
Good to be with you. And Brandon Daniels, he is CEO of Exiger. Hello, Brandon.
Hi, Bob. Thank you for having us.
And thank you. Tim, tell me about Hope for Justice. Who are you folks? What do you do?
Yeah, so Hope for Justice is an NGO that was founded 16 years ago with a vision to see an end to modern day slavery, human trafficking, labor exploitation. We set up with a vision to work across preventing exploitation, rescuing victims, seeing those victims themselves being restored, and then seeing a restoration of what we think are the principles that society needs to live by. But in practical terms, we operate across 7 countries looking to address the issues of modern day slavery. And as part of that, we, back in 2018, we set up a division called Slave-Free Alliance. And that works alongside multinational corporations looking to remove slavery from their supply chain. And it came off the back of a case that we had in the UK where there were over 400 individual victims that we found by doing covert intelligence and finding these victims. And by the time it came to court, it was the largest case in European history. And since then, we've built Slave-Free Alliance now to working with hundreds of major multinational corporations across the world.
So you do great work, but what do you need in order to facilitate your mission? Tell me a little bit about what challenge you faced here that we're talking about today.
Yes, so in practical terms, companies come to us because they have either a regulatory requirement, they're seeing how legislation has changed and they need to address it. They've maybe got a PR problem because they've just heard a story about within their supply chain, there's a major issue. Or they're trying to address this issue based on principles they've got as a company. But they'll come to us and say, look, we only know what we know. Can you come and help us do what we call gap analysis to pinpoint where the problems are within their supply chain? From that gap analysis, we create a program of work that we will work with them over a 3-year period to help address that issue. But the problem that we've got is we can help them from a consulting point of view. We can go through all the various statements and processes and policies they've got. We can come in and do site assessments, but it only goes so far. And what we have realized is that we need to have a technology component that would give us visibility beyond that which we can see ourselves. And that's where Exiger comes in. That's where the platform really helps us.
You partnered with Exiger.
Absolutely.
Why Exiger specifically?
Well, you know, there's probably about, I think, somewhere in the region of 400 companies that I've come across that have some sort of technology solution for businesses, giving some level of kind of visibility. But the problem I've got is knowing a little bit more. Not all of those systems do what they say they're there to do. Not all of them help in the way that they're meant to do. So we set about looking and analyzing those systems to try and determine who we would partner with. And genuinely, a small number came to the fore, and Exiger was head and shoulders above all of the other systems that we were looking at for how they could help us to address that issue. And so for the clients that we've got, we could offer help and support through their system.
So Brandon, help me understand more specifically what it is you do for these folks. What is your solution, and why do you feel like it was sort of in your wheelhouse, so to speak?
Well, the first thing is our customers were seeing forced labor issues come through the platform going back to 2020. And I remember this one very specific case where one of our largest customers, a global electronics, logistics, cloud computing company, was utilizing our software. They had put one of their vendors through all of the traditional screening practices and they came back green. They uploaded that vendor into our system once that vendor was going to contract. And one of the things that came up about that vendor is that their existing director, essentially their CEO, had at that same time owned another company. And that company was at that moment in time being indicted for trafficking 39 Vietnamese immigrants into the UK, and all of them dying inside of that cargo hold. And so they were able to stop that contract from happening just by that procurement person doing their job, right? Just by utilizing the platform and onboarding them into the system and getting a comprehensive AI-driven level of due diligence, they were able to stop forced labor. And that case study for that customer led me to want to work with NGOs and led me to want to work with Hope for Justice to stamp this problem out at the root, right? We need our customers to use our system to actually effectuate change. But working with Hope for Justice, Slave-Free Alliance, we could be a part of effectuating change. We could be a part of the investigations. We could be a part of the ground research. We could be a part of them delivering what they needed to in order for multinationals to make decisions and to actually rehabilitate their supply chains from modern slavery. And so, one, we knew we had the capacity to do it because we bring AI that does entity level due diligence and visibility, supply chain level visibility and due diligence. It does risk analysis, and also we can get down to the product and part and component within the supply chain and tell you how that process is made, tell you where there might be forced labor inside of that individual product that you might not have that you might not have visibility to.
Right.
And so I knew we could help Tim, and I knew that Tim would actually do something good in the world with our technology, with our partnership, with our capabilities merged together. And so that's how we founded this partnership.
Sounds like a true partnership. So
Yeah,
we're talking
absolutely.
about a depth of information and intelligence that just wasn't there before.
That's right.
Yeah. Tim, what was it like to take on this solution? I mean, was it a challenge to implement it? Did it turn out smoothly? Just how did it all come down?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at something that you want to do, there's always going to be almost the climb that you have to go through to try and get to that point.
Sure.
It's not always going to just be plain sailing, press a button and everything's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
What we want to do when we're working with these companies is, first of all, understand how the company's ecosystem works itself, because every company is slightly nuanced. It's different. It doesn't always operate in a standardized model and format. So you're kind of looking at it and saying, for each one of those companies, bringing on a system is not an easy decision. They're not speaking to one person, that person makes the decision. So you generally have to work with stakeholder groups of individuals who have a part to play in how this can happen.
And prove the value to all of them.
Exactly. And each one of them has their own idea, each one of them has their own experience and understanding. So you're effectively trying to bring everybody onto one existing understanding that then when you get them there, it's much easier to bring a system like Exiger on board, because a lot of that stakeholder management is them seeing that they have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because to so many companies themselves, they're oblivious to the fact that this is a real issue. But with the regulatory framework coming through, it's starting to drive that level of understanding, the threat of fines and sanctions. These things are now starting to cause people to ask different questions, which then brings everyone to the table all together.
Yeah. So you emerged from this then, again, this idea of depth of intelligence. Now, supply chains, global supply chains are almost by their very nature multi-tier. You're able to use the Exiger solution to get past tier one, are you not? To get to the source and understand everything that's going on through a supply chain. Do you feel like you're at that point right now?
Yeah, well, given a practical example, today we were talking about a product called tantalum, which is found in so many different industries across the world.
Right.
It's where we get capacitors from. It's used in bodies for when they're putting implants in, because that product itself does not corrode under the chemical balance in a body. It doesn't rust. From our perspective, if you're looking at that product of tantalum, you can assume it's going to infect lots and lots of industries across the world. But behind the scenes of it, because we get fed intelligence from other NGOs, because of us being an NGO, we're hearing about, here's a report that's been done on tantalum, where they're using children in mining settings, artisanal mining settings, and where children are involved in the washing of the rocks and the pressing and crushing of the rocks themselves, to us getting that core product. If you just assume tantalum is this issue that's coming from places like the Democratic Republic of Congo, Brazil and other places like that, you can feel so far removed from where that product is connected.
Yeah.
So when we were talking about that product today, we're able to use Exiger system to pinpoint not just where it's coming from, but which are the industries that are affected. What are the core products? Things like your smartphone, the device that effectively controls what the charging of your smartphone is using that tantalum within it. These are things that people need to be aware of, because then they can ask different questions. So that's a really relevant example to show how this is, but that's what they're able to do across all sectors of supply chain.
So Brendan, where are you now with this solution? Are there more bells and whistles and enhancements you might bring to bear on behalf of Hope for Justice, and for that matter, any of your customers? What's the future look like in terms of what you're doing?
Yeah, so there are three things that we're focused on right now. The first is really helping people to get visibility to their supply chain on an indented bill of material. So not just understanding who your suppliers are for instance, a set of raw materials like nickel or aluminum or whatever it might be, but being able to then say, Well, that specific aluminum has to go into this power tool, or that lithium ion battery has to go into this outdoor power equipment, right? Because that's the only essentially component that you manufacture that can take that component, right? So getting to that indented bill of materials so that you can get to real specificity on the supply chain when you get to supply chain intelligence is 4 or 5 tiers out is incredibly important to our customers because it helps them to actually look at their entire business and break it down into the business segments that they're operating and make decisions that are appropriate for that area. The second thing that we're doing is we're investing significantly in something we're calling proactive intelligence. And so what we're doing, instead of having our customers just look at their supply chain and orchestrate their supply chain and look at risk in their supply chain, we're actually going to take an inside-out view of Exiger. And so across all of our customers, we can see these macro dynamics, essentially across value chains. So if there's one, let's say, semiconductor, that is being demanded by lots of different value chains, all with different profit margins, all with different demand forecasts. But we can see that there are shortages coming up. We can actually relate that back to the industry that our customer is in, even if they're not the sector where that shortage has been essentially flagged. And then the final thing that we're doing this year is we're focusing on integration within one Exiger. So I want the demand planner, I want the person that's doing a line of balance analysis, I want them also to see what kind of resilience their suppliers have. Because let's say, for instance, you're going to make a bigger order in order to stabilize a business's financial health, right? Mm-hmm. You might not see that, well, actually their production capacity is only going to allow them to get to 30% or 40% of the order. And your order might take them into a capital space that is unsustainable for them. They don't have the cash and capital or cost of capital that can support it. And so we want to give you that sort of proactive intelligence to help you make better decisions and not to just be reactive to these issues.
Gentlemen, thank you for such an inspiring story. It sounds like you guys are really making a difference. Thank you for being with me today and telling me your story. Appreciate
Thanks so
it.
much.
Thank you so much.
I've been speaking with Tim Nelson of Hope for Justice and Brandon Daniels of Exiger. Thank you very much for watching.